We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings, but to date I've had no request for people to speak Welsh today, so the meeting will be conducted in English only. Please can members refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphones muted when you are not talking, and please do not interrupt discussions until you have notified of your intention to speak and you have been invited to do so. Please remind everyone that we have 2 reports to go through this morning, so time really is of the essence. We do it constructively and concisely, but bearing in mind that we have 2 reports. As we have some new members on the Health Committee, can I ask everyone initially to introduce themselves, please? Shall we start with Councillor Watkins?
Good morning, I'm Councillor Watkins, Councillor for Fairwater.
Good morning, Nick Jones, Councillor at Lantern Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Mark Jones, current the Pontypool Vow Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Rose Seaborn.
Oh, sorry. Good morning, I'm Councillor Lucy Williams from Upper Cumbrian Ward.
Councillor Steve Evans from the Upper Cumbrian Ward, as you know.
Good morning, Councillor Linda Clarkson from the Abercrombie Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Alfie Best, Pont Edison, Snatchwood.
Good morning, I'm Jason O'Brien. I'm the... Is my microphone? No, it's too many on. Oh, it's too many. Oh, okay. Good morning, I'm Jason O'Brien. I'm the Acting Strategic Director for Social Care and Housing.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Paxton. I'm Head of Adult Services and Commissioning.
Good morning, I'm Jo Newman. I'm Group Manager in Adult Services.
Good morning, I'm Melanie Baker, T-Class Adol and Heblead.
I'm Councillor Jan Jones, Ward Member for Glenavon.
Morning all, I'm Rebecca, I'm a Scrutiny Officer.
Morning all, I'm Garrington from Democratic Services. There's no apologies, Chair.
Do we have it? Anyone?
Thank you, Chair. If I just quickly run through members alphabetically, and if you could declare if you have any interest. So, Councillor Best.
Sorry, no interest I'm aware of.
Thank you. Councillor Clarkson.
No interest.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Well, it's in my ward, that's the first thing, and I'm collaborate with the T-Class with any community projects and whatever else. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Janet Jones.
No, no interest.
Councillor Mark Jones.
No.
Councillor Nick Jones. No. Councillor Seaborn.
And that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
No.
And Councillor Williams.
The same as...
Can we use the microphones?
The same as Councillor Evans, T-Class Adol is in our ward.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Are we not going to... Sorry, I never get used to this. Can we go through to item 3, the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 1st of March 2021? Can you state whether you have any issues raised on the minutes? If not, I will take... I think it was only Councillor Clarkson and myself were on that meeting who are now coming forward on this Health Committee. So, Linda, do you have any issues from there?
No, nothing that I can note.
Okay. I'll take them as read.
Sorry, Chair, can I just quickly
Yes.
cut in? Eunice Jones is also online. If she could just ask her to introduce herself to members. Sorry, we missed right.
Eunice, good morning. Could you introduce yourself to all members, please?
Yeah, I'm Eunice Jones and I am a group manager within social care.
Thank you, Eunice. I do in this particular context, so welcome. Rebecca. It's not our action sheet.
Thank you, Chair. So members, if I can draw your attention to item 4, the action sheet. As you'll see there are 2 actions on there, one for further information from the last committee and then one with regards to the recommendations, both of which have been actioned. So unless you have any questions, members, I have nothing.
Not from me.
Okay. We now move on to agenda item 5, T-Glass and Dolan, the first 6 months review. Before we commence our discussions, I would like the opportunity to welcome Jason, our Chief Officer, Sarah Paxton, our Head of Adult Services, Joanne, Eunice and Mel to the meeting. On behalf of all the members, we would like to thank you for allowing us to come to visit T-Glass and Dolan, where we were made most welcome. It was so informative, really useful, and we haven't stopped talking about it yet. So I'll hand over to Joe now, please, and if you'll give us a brief introduction, and then we can commence our questioning. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, just to give you a little bit of background, you will have had the report, but T-Glass and Dolan is seen as an innovative development in Torfaen, and actually first of its kind, we believe, in Wales. First tenants moved into T-Glass and Dolan in January 2022, so we've almost been open to the public for a year. We are actually been open with keys for a year now, but almost open for a year to the public. It's an innovative model in that when we developed adult services, we're in our phase 2 of our transformation. Phase 1 was to look at patch-based commissioning of social workers sitting in the patches and becoming more intertwined, if you like, in their neighbourhoods. And part of the research that we did with people was to ask them when they get older, when they age in, when they suffer from illness, what sort of service would they wish to receive, really. And they came back with, we would obviously like to stay in our own homes, but if we can't stay in our own home, then we would want to stay somewhere with our own front door, for as long as possible outside of residential and nursing care. So we built the model around that in terms of own front door. People said if they needed respite, they wanted a place where it was lively, where the accommodation looked more like a hotel type accommodation rather than residential and nursing home. So we built the concept around that as well. As you know, there are on the top floor 6 permanent residents, tenants, and they are Bronafon tenants, and then the other floors then are used for short stay and reablement. We have a team there that's headed by Mel that includes OTs and physios, as well as enablement support workers and others, and we've changed the names of the roles to sort of give that hotel type of feel rather than a residential type of feel. It was anticipated from the beginning that T-Glass and Dolan as a model would bring about shorter stays in hospital, would reduce delayed transfers of care, that there would be improved access to the community over a 24-hour period, because T-Glass and Dolan is a drop-in, anybody can drop in at any time for advice, support and assistance, and that we would reduce the demand for large and complex packages of care because of the reablement support we were able to provide. We're in the early days. It's a 3 to 5 year business model, but in the first 9 months now, we are seeing that T-Glass and Dolan is showing equivalency against its benchmark of residential care, but with improved quality of life outcomes as well. In the report itself, you'll see a diagram of our graduated response diagram, and all that we're aiming to do is to support people to stay at home and in the community, so in those outside rings of that diagram, to prevent moving into the higher levels of care in the middle of residential and nursing, to support people to live the life they want to live and how they want to live it within the community. The outcomes that we're achieving, we are seeing some shorter stays in hospital, and only this week we've pulled people from hospital that haven't even touched the social work patches yet. They've come straight from hospital, straight into T Glassadorlan, straight through a reablement programme with the physios, and they will be going home without any package of care, just with the equipment that they need to mobilise and move around. So we are beginning to see everything that we hoped it would do. Slowly but surely, it is producing the outcomes we were looking for. And the feedback that we've received from guests, there has been no complaints, and some of the feedback that we've had from guests we've included in the report. You know, it means everything. When they say they care, they truly, genuinely care. Back in February, I felt doubtful that she would be able to become independent again. Wow, now Mum has regained her skills so much that she felt able to return home safely. And those are just some of the comments that people have made. People enjoy their stay. And probably one of the challenges is people going home, to be honest with you. But we do offer wraparound service from T Glassadorlan as well, in that we will follow people out and home into the community so that they can continue to have their rehab at home and continue with the progress. The door is always open for people to come back to T Glassadorlan at any time, and we keep in touch with people. And in the future, we're hoping to develop more drop-in services and more community-based services as well. Got some good partnerships now with the care home that's just next door, with the pharmacist that's across the road, the community council. The tenants go across for lunch at the community centre there as well, and people are beginning to recognise T Glassadorlan in the community now. So there's some really positive things going on. I'm going to leave it there, and perhaps you've got some questions for me.
But before we do, thank you for your report. As I said, we will have a series of questions. But before we do, I'll ask Jason or Sarah or Mel if you want to come in and say anything before we start.
Nothing further for me to add. Chair, the report's thorough. Obviously, I think Joe's covered off the issues and all the key points. And again, you know, as Joe said, if there are any questions, and I'm sure amongst the four of us, or certainly amongst the three sat on my left, we'll be able to answer them.
Okay. Right, if everyone's okay, we will start to move into our series of questions, which we had for pre-agenda yesterday. The first question comes from Councillor Seaborn. So, Councillor Seaborn, are you okay to proceed?
Thank you, Chair. And my question relates to the key messages on the bullet points on the first page of the report there. And my question is, are these objectives being achieved? If not, why not? And what gaps have been identified? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Seaborn. Yes, we're in early days, as I said. We're in the first 9 months of the scheme. However, we are starting to see shorter lengths of stay in hospital, especially where we can go into the hospital wards ourselves, do the assessments, and pull people straight out of hospital, straight to T Glassadorlan. Those seem to be the most successful routes for us at the moment, going into the acute hospital, into the Grange, linking with the physios that are in T Glassadorlan have got strong networks across the hospitals, and they're able to identify people where the rehab in T Glassadorlan would matter most then, if you like. So they're able to go straight in and pull those people out. We have taken people who have been delayed transfers of care from hospital and have been able to support them to reduce the package of care that they need. And in reducing the package of care that they need, as we all know, there is a domiciliary care issue in the communities at the moment. But in reducing the package of care that they need, we've been able to move them on then and back home where they needed to be. So, I mean, that covers off the reducing the demand for large complex care packages. We have a specialist OT within T Glassadorlan who looks at trying to support moving and handling packages to reduce from 2 carers to 1 carers and using specialist equipment. We've just installed some more specialist equipment within T Glasodolin to enable us to look at a hoist-free care as well. So yeah, I would say at this stage we are beginning to see a difference. Obviously we've got, further to go. We are learning. Part of the model is to learn as we go. But at the moment I would say we are covering off those points. We still have some work to do around the financial model, but at the moment, like I say, it's showing equivalency to residential care.
Thank you. Any identified gaps?
If I could come in, Chair. Obviously, as Joe's pointed out, we're 9 months into T Glasodolin having residents. I think in terms of the evaluations, we've got those initial really positive indicators. It's about the timescales on which we evaluate. I think what we wanted to do, obviously, was bring the report and the model to scrutiny at an early stage because of it being so innovative, and for it to remain on the agenda going forward, really, for that additional scrutiny and that additional evaluation. As you say, as Joe said, the indications are really positive at this stage. 6 months, 9 months into the structure and into the operations. It's about that longevity and how we evaluate going further forward then as well.
Thank you, Jason.
The only other thing I would mention, Councillor Seaborn, is that as a project, as a programme, T Glasodolin will now sit on the Adult Services Programme Board, which Jason chairs. So in terms of how well it's performing, where there are gaps, we will be constantly, on month by month, monitoring that very closely now. Have we got the right performance measures in place, things like that? Are the finances stacking up? So we will take that learning to that board so that we can provide assurance that if we need to change things, that we're on it and we're doing it.
Thank you, Sarah.
I think what T Glasodolin gives us as well, as you can see within the report, is that flexibility to be able to adapt as well. So again, early learning, as we develop further, that flexibility is there to be able to, I guess, vary some of the functions and depend on what outcomes we're seeing.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Seaborn. And we now go on to a question from Councillor Mark Jones, please.
Yes, regarding the core team, have you found any missing roles within the core team representation?
We at the beginning, this time last year, we've recruited from this time last year over 40 people into different roles. However, we are still short occupational therapy, so we need to go out for another recruitment campaign for occupational therapy with a rehab background. We've been able to flex the model in terms of putting in some more business support, in terms of different kinds of administrative functions, but support to Melanie as the team lead in terms of the business support. And we've always got a recruitment advert out for enablement support workers to provide that care and support. What we have seen and what has been really positive is that some of our enablement support workers have been now promoted into the enablement assistant roles. So we are seeing progression, which is really nice to see. And in the future, and it is a future, we would hope to see T Glasodolin as a bit of an academy, if you like, in terms of offering support and career roles to people coming out of colleges, because we think it's a kind of a nice environment. Whereas we want to encourage and empower the people that stay with us, we also want to encourage and empower the staff group. So we want to try and coach and mentor to bring people on as well.
But can I just ask, why do you think it's being tricky to get the OTs that you need?
Yeah, I think the OT is a problem not just for us but across Gwent. There is an issue around some of our support allied to the medical model professions, and OT is one of those. I guess a lot of OTs start their careers within the health service, and it's encouraging them to come out of that health environment and into the community environment. What we've been really successful in doing is having a service level agreement with our colleagues in health, so that when we can attract our OTs, physios, whoever with a health contract, they can continue on that health contract, but obviously work for the local authority.
I think that's an ideal opportunity for me to, I guess, put on members' radar that I know it's out there already, but in terms of the issues and the challenges we have with workforce and recruitment across, nationally as well versed, isn't it, but across the whole social care and health framework, that's a real challenge for us. And I think that's mirrored through some of the issues in terms of that recruitment and the transfer over from health to social care as well, and vice versa.
Okay, next question comes from Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Chair. On paragraph 3.6.2, it deals with the guest experience booklet. I just wondered, who did you consult when you were planning the booklet?
Okay, so the booklet was obviously written and pulled together by Mel, but the tenants on the top floor were consulted, Bonafin was consulted, some of our guests were consulted, the core team, the patch teams, people, we asked people, what would you want to see, what do you want to know, some of the hospital ward staff, what do you need to tell patients before they come to us. Within the first couple of days of people coming in, we didn't have the booklet there to begin with. In the first couple of days, we were sort of thinking, well, what do we need, what conversations are we having with people, what do we need to tell people, and that's how it came about. And we review it all the time, based on the feedback that we get.
Yeah, it's a statutory requirement from CIW, Care Inspectorate Wales, for us to have. The care and support within T Glaston-Dorlan is registered under domiciliary care, so we have to have information, obviously, for the tenants and for the short-stay guests who are receiving domiciliary care. So that is effectively a live document. We will update it as we need to, but it is part of our regulatory requirement.
So you said you asked some guests to contribute to it. Did you choose them particularly, or did you actually ask all guests and only some contributed?
It was the guests that were staying at T Glaston-Dorlan at the time that the booklet was being put together, to be honest with you, and families that had commented on. We said, what would have made it easier for you? What would have made it easier for you in planning for your relative to come here? What did you not know that you now know that it would be easier for people to know, before they walked in through the door, kind of thing. Yeah.
On to the next question from Councillor Seaborn, please.
Thank you, Chair. My next question, it relates to 3.7.1, T Glaston-Dorlan Partners. And in the previous council, we had the privilege of going down to the hospital to visit the Home First team, and I was just wondering, do you work closely with the Home First team within the hospital?
Yeah, so the Home First team is one of our partners. We have, because we're open seven days a week, Home First are working 7 days a week. If they have identified somebody that could come and stay at T Glaston-Dorlan, then we will, usually our reablement assistants are usually around and about the hospital on the weekend. They will link up with the Home First team and do a joint visit together, and we will pull people out of the hospital if that's appropriate to do. Or we have actually provided the outreach before people have come into T Glaston-Dorlan as well from hospital for a couple of days, and then pull people back into T Glaston-Dorlan. So yeah, the Home First team is one of our partners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next two questions come from Councillor Clarkson. So, Councillor Clarkson, are you okay?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, all. First part of my question is around the financial analysis, and I understand that it's been working under capacity because of the challenges of COVID, but shortly you'll be working towards 80% occupancy and then hopefully on to 100% occupancy. I was just wondering whether or not there were any challenges that you anticipated towards working towards the 80% occupancy and timescales that you might envisage associated with that.
Okay, yeah. So in the beginning, there were quite a few challenges in that the team from Tŷ Glas y Dorlen were pulled to work in the community to begin with when we first opened because of the crisis in care over the last Christmas and New Year. So we needed to move those people on to longer term providers and then pull the staff group back into Tŷ Glas y Dorlen. That took a little bit of time. And then we needed to obviously get people up to speed into what we wanted Tŷ Glas y Dorlen to be. So there was training and a bit about culture development within Tŷ Glas y Dorlen, because we want it to be very much about the art of the possible and people's strengths. And so it is about change in thinking. So we wanted a bit of time to build in that training and development. We've always built Tŷ Glas y Dorlen with that training and development in mind and with that iterative learning in mind. So we always said 80% for that for the occupancy, 20% for the learning. As we're going through now, and Mel will probably provide testament to this, there isn't a bed that's empty in Tŷ Glas y Dorlen. From where are we now, October? I would have said from July, August time, we've hardly had a bed open. If we've had a bed open, it's been overnight. Respite, obviously, during the summer periods has been full as well, and bookable respite people are really pleased about and are booking way in advance. So we haven't done the figures yet, but I imagine that we're already up to around about 80%, and if not higher than that, really.
That's great to hear. The other part of the question was it was mentioned that some people hadn't accessed the service due to financial reasons. So I just wondered if you could have some more information on how we can support people who want to access the facilities but can't afford to do so. They may be on a small occupational pension, so just above means tested benefit, or their stay may have been longer than anticipated, so not the costs have changed from their perspective. So how are we helping people who've got financial constraints themselves to access the service?
So the service itself, in terms of the care, there's two elements to the service, the care and the accommodation. In terms of the care and support at Tŷ Glas y Dorlen and all the enablement support is free at the point of delivery. The bit that we actually charge for is the accommodation. So if you like the roof over your head, the hotel service is part of it. We charge £9 a night for the single room and £11 a night for the double room. There has been comment that, okay, so if I stayed in hospital, those charges wouldn't apply to me and I would still get my reablement. There has been comment of that. But what we say is that £9 a night is about the additional support that you get in Tŷ Glas y Dorlen, the ability to support yourself in an environment where reablement is everything. In the hospital, you would maybe get 20 minutes, half an hour of reablement. It's all day, every day in Tŷ Glas y Dorlen, and you're likely to meet higher goals, if you like. We never say never. That's the model is never say never. So we would always talk to people about what it is that's stopping them affording that, and if there was anything else we could do, then we would do it. We offer different packages as well for people. We support people with shopping and different things. But the £9 is really to cover the gas, the electric, the water of the running of the building. And that's probably as low as we can get it at the moment, given the cost of living that we're in, and the fact that Tŷ Glas y Dorlen, needs to prove its worth in terms of the economics of the model as well as the quality of the model.
David, do you want to come in?
Thank you. Yes, both your points really, Councillor. The first obviously a model like this will never be 100% full, because obviously, you know, you've got people coming and going, so there will always be a small number of voids, but Mel and the team keep a very close eye on that, and broadly speaking, it is now, you know, about 80% and beyond. And in terms of the financial model, we know that we have got to give that some further consideration. It's Welsh Government and Social Services and Wellbeing Act that says reablement for the first 6 weeks of reablement is a free service to the person, so obviously we're required to do that. But actually that means that there's an additional cost, if you like, to the council, because we don't get any income from people staying. And so at the moment, it's our teams, our patch teams, that are effectively from their budgets, moving budgets to T Glassadorlan to pay for the care. But it is quite complex, and it is an area that we are going to give further consideration to as we go forward, as we understand what that means. But we wouldn't wish to exclude anybody on the basis that they genuinely can't afford to pay. There is always discretion with the council and its budget.
That's good to hear. I think the next question is mine as well, so I'll just go straight into that. It's more about a little bit more of information about how the staff at T Glassadorlan are working with sort of the wider reablement teams and the sort of rapid response teams, such as those that are housed at Cedar Ward in the county. Is there any work with these teams, and how is that progressing, if so? And obviously a little bit more information on the impact in relation to addressing a domiciliary care crisis that we're currently struggling to cope with.
Thank you. Our emergency care at home team, which is the team you're referring to in Cedar Ward, our in-house intake team, and the team at T Glassadorlan all form part of the council's domiciliary care service. So we are one service, if you like, but we are three elements, three branches to that. With myself as the responsible individual and a registered manager. So we do work together because we're actually one service, albeit that we're sitting in different parts of the system. One of the things that Mel and her team, the emergency care home team and the intake team are doing is to work at ways to work really closely together, because actually we're broadly working with the same people. So we always say home first. So if somebody can go to their own home, we'd be looking at emergency care at home or the intake team supporting them. If they can't go to their own home first for any reason, then we'd be saying, why not T Glassadorlan then? Come and have a stay there. So we are actually one service all trying to work in the same way. So to assure you, Councillor, we are doing that, and we are developing those pathways. And I, as a responsible individual, meet with the three areas and are talking to them in terms of our statement of purpose, making sure that there aren't gaps through which people can fall, because it's really important. And you're going to need to remind me about the second part of your question, I'm afraid.
It was how that is sort of helping with the domiciliary care crisis that we're currently sort of suffering. If I can just come back on the point you made about working together, do you anticipate any issues there with, you know, obviously if your bed occupancy is already very high, there's not going to be, depending this winter, how many elderly people come forward. Is there any wiggle room within T Glassadorlan to have a small amount of capacity? You know, I know our hospital wards are working at 95% at the moment. It makes it impossible to get people in quickly. Has T Glassadorlan got that small amount of wiggle room to sort of accommodate those sort of urgent cases?
We do where we can, but it is completely based on what capacity we have in the system at the time. But Mel is constantly being contacted by hospital wards and the health board, and actually in terms of our winter plan, our wider winter plan, having a facility like T Glassadorlan is really helpful to us and to the community, so that we will be able to pull people from hospital as quickly as we possibly can. But obviously, as we all know, nationally, there is a social care crisis, and there is a huge amount of pressure in the system. T-Glass needs social care workers, and in fact, we will be bringing a paper to scrutiny, I think, next time on the dom care crisis. So rather than me perhaps do that now, would it be all right if we wait till we bring that paper?
Yes, I was just...
That's fine by me. Yeah, that's fine by me. I think it's answered the general scope of the question. Thank you very much for the response.
Thank you, Linda. The next question is from myself in regards to paragraphs 4.2.5 and 4.2.10. 13 requests from hospital-based staff on short-stay outcomes. Should we be expected to see a higher number of requests from hospital-based staff? When we were visiting you, we heard how the physiotherapists were actively trawling patients' lists every day to find patients suitable for discharge to T-Glass and Dolan, and also finding patients whilst on visit to hospitals. Do you think our hospitals are well enough informed of the T-Glass and Dolan facility and are actively discharging suitable patients?
Yeah, the hospital are informed. Yeah. Obviously, we can always do more work in terms of informing and having a presence in the hospital. I think the hospital staff are very busy, making arrangements for discharges and different things. I think the early days of T-Glass at Dolan, it was an early model and people weren't quite sure what T-Glass at Dolan could do. They're well aware of what T-Glass at Dolan can do now, and it's like a hot phone in the office. He doesn't stop. So Mel is constantly on the phone to the hospitals are constantly on the phone to Mel. The physios still do the ward walks, the RAs are there on the weekends assessing people and pulling people out, but that is part of having a presence in the hospitals, just to remind people that we are there and there is an alternative. Not everybody that comes out of hospital needs 4 calls a day. There are other alternatives to that. So yes, the hospitals are well aware of T-Glass at Dolan. We are on their radar, yeah. But we will always, walk the wards as well and let people know.
Yes, just to assure you that senior leaders in the health board have been to visit T-Glass at Dolan, so they are aware of it. So hopefully that will cascade down to the frontline staff and our neighbourhood care networks, our GPs. They are also aware T-Glass is discussed at the Torvine Integrated Partnership. So broadly, and obviously it's about the message getting out there really, but also people having confidence in the model so that they feel confident that, particularly the hospitals, that they can discharge people to T-Glass at Dolan and pass that duty of care. And that does take time because that's a behavioural change.
Now, Nick, do you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. 35 requests to stay were declined, a number of which were due to the level of intensity versus staffing requirements, especially overnight. Is this something we should look to be addressing moving forward?
T-Glass at Dolan has 2 staff overnight. One is sleeping and one is awaking night. So one is up and around and doing the care, and then the other support worker can be called on if needed. We have had requests where additional night service has been needed. What we need to be careful of is that T-Glass at Dolan is a domiciliary care facility then, and not a residential or a nursing home. So we need to be very careful around our registration requirements there in terms of CIW. I guess we can flex up occasionally if we need to, and we have actually done this week. So there are staff on the rota that we can ask if they would, if they would be happy and willing to do a night shift, and very often they are. So if people deteriorate, and sometimes unfortunately they do deteriorate, rather than go back into hospital, people will stay at T-Glass at Dolan until we can get them well again and then go back home. if we were to put additional night services into T Glassadorlan, obviously there would be an additional financial cost, and we would have to look at the financial envelope for that versus the outcomes that we get. But it is like we say, a learning model, an iterative model, and we'll just have to see, see where the demand is, see how we go, and what difference we could make.
Yeah, thank you. And Joe mentioned it, but I just want to stress it is absolutely vital that this is seen by CIW as a domiciliary care service. And once we start staffing it overnight, anything above a waking night and sleeping, we are starting to edge towards a very different regulatory framework. And it is not a care home, nor will it ever be a care home.
Before we go on to the next question, just remind our members who are not in the chamber, feel free to come and ask any questions. Just because we've got these written down from our pre-agenda, if you want to interact or come in, please do by using the hand facilities, okay? Jason.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just go back to the last question. What we've got to be careful of as well is we don't dilute the model that currently exists, and it doesn't become the answer to all need within the community. And whilst I totally understand those higher level issues and those higher level needs, but we just have to, whilst we can flex up and flex down, we have to make sure that that's within certain parameters, obviously. And as Sarah and Joe pointed out, the premise in terms of the CIW regime around that as well.
Councillor Seaborn, do you want to come in, please?
Yes, please, Chair. I just, in my early years as a home carer, there used to be an organisation called Crossroads, which provided respite of evening sittings and things. Do we still have that within our community, the Crossroads charity?
We don't have Crossroads anymore, Rose. We do have an organisation called Carers Trust, and they provide some of the sit-in services that we offer, and also some of our domiciliary care providers off our preferred provider list will offer sit-in services as well.
Oh, thank you. And another question, if I may, Chair, it should have been linked to my previous one. Do we link with Torfaen Leisure Trust at all for any of their services or their classes?
To date, we haven't, as far as I know, Mel, we haven't, but it would be something that we could look into. If you like, in development we've concentrated on the short stay beds and on the tenancies on the top floor. The next sort of arm of what we need to do is to look at our kind of day offer, if you like, and our links with leisure and other community activities. We do offer some kind of Tai Chi classes and daily fit classes and bump fit classes, so that it becomes intergenerational within T Glassadorlan. But there's always more room for us to do in sort of outreach into others as well, in terms of what we could offer.
Thank you.
Thank you. From Councillor Lucy Williams. Lucy. Pardon, Councillor Steve Evans wants to come in a minute.
Sorry, Lucy, the budget. Just following on from that with collaboration with the Leisure Trust. I mean, the things we're doing for the residents within T Glassadorlan, as you know what I'm involved with, it's not just their physical pains and everything else, it's their mental well-being. And I think what you're doing with the additional support of clubs and a close working within the community, I think you ought to be praised, because sometimes it does take the emphasis away from their physical pain. And I think these activities do give them something to look forward to. And I think, the additional support is a great help. And I mean, the staff working there are exemplary, and the keenness, it's an excellent model, and I'm fully supported anyway. But I mean, people need to realise it's not there, like you said, just for people coming in and stay all the time. There's lots of things going on within that centre, which people need to realise how good it is working within the communities. So, yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Lucy, you can continue now.
I'll link these two questions together, shall I? Yeah. First of all, Sarah, thanks for emphasising that T. Glass-Dolan comes under the domiciliary care legislation. I think it's quite important that we understand the difference between legislation covering residential care, legislation covering domiciliary care. So I found that really helpful. And also the fact that yourselves, the reablement team, the Home First are actually all part of one team, 3 separate sections. So thanks for that clarification. So my two questions are more linked to operational issues. So the first question, and I know this is a problem across the board, so it was noted when we went to for our visit, unsurprisingly, that one of the issues preventing speedy discharge is the lack of DOSIT boxes and all the issues around pharmacy plans. So have you found that anything particularly is working well within T. Glassy-Dolan to address this issue? Or is that still very much, an ongoing problem across the board? Because I can imagine it probably is.
So yes, Lucy, it is still a problem. There are still issues around medication. We do all that we can to try and make people independent around medication. We're using assistive technology, we're using Alexa prompts, we're using DOSIT boxes. However, there has been an issue, and I believe there's only 2 pharmacies in Torine now that offer the DOSIT box solution, then, if you like. So it does cause an issue because there's more reliance on families and Mars charts and recording of medication in that way. But where we can make people more aware of the medications they're taking and more independent in the medications they're taking, we do. We often ask for reviews of medication to try and sort out the doses, if you like, so that if people don't need to take the medication 4 times a day, they can take it 3 times a day. We can support in a better way that way. And it is, we've made some really positive links we're opposite a pharmacist, so we've made some really positive links with the pharmacists across the road where we can go and ask the questions that we need to ask, because as social care staff we don't always have those kind of answers, but we can just pick up the phone or pop across the road. So we've got quite close links there, and we've got close links with the district nurses and with the GPs as well. So it's a work in progress then. It's not off the agenda. It's a work in progress.
I'm just kind of following on from that. How do you find your relationship in addressing this wider issue with an Aaron Bevan, with the health authority? Because obviously that's a big issue linked to the.
Pharmacy is part of the NCN meeting and part of the TIP meeting, talked about the integration partnership, and it is on the agenda there to be addressed.
Lovely. Thank you. That's really helpful. So the second sort of question is linked to that and linked to the domiciliary care. So how are we supporting and educating families in managing their expectations when having to alter levels of care packages? How's that going?
Sometimes it goes well, and other times it doesn't go quite so well. There is an expectation often set up that people coming from hospital will need care. They do need care and the levels of care that they need. I guess the bonus of T. Glassy-Dolan is that we're able to try things. We're able to downsize and right-size care in a protected environment, if you like, in an environment where we can be flexible, we can try equipment, we can try different regimes and different techniques, and there are always people on hand to step in if that is needed. So that is one of the real bonuses of T. Glassy-Dolan. Also, people having to make decisions on hospital wards is difficult, isn't it?
Sorry to interrupt, we just lost connection, so can we just pause the meeting 2 seconds? Really sorry.
I couldn't hear what you were saying with that funny noise. Sorry, I couldn't quite catch the last bit because of that funny noise. Could you just...
Yeah, so Tea Glass Adolin is a bit of a protected environment, really, in terms of being able to right-size the packages of care, because it offers a safety net. You can try things with different equipment, different techniques, different ways of approaching things, with the safety net of having staff to step in and flex up, flex down as you go, really, and give family members the confidence that mum or dad or brother or sister can cope. So yeah, it does provide us with opportunity. And also people making decisions in hospitals. Hospitals are not necessarily the best place to make decisions about how people want to live their future lives. So Tea Glass Adolin offers people time out, really, a space, a safe space to think about how people want to live their lives in the future, whilst undertaking the reablement to enhance and nurture the strengths that they do have. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
My question's next, and you've probably nearly answered it. How are we supporting guests when they return home?
Okay, so we recognise that obviously stepping down from Tea Glass Adolin is not easy. So what we try to do before they go home is we try to replicate the kind of service that they would have when they return home. So we step back, step down, and then when people do go home, we either follow them out with a package of care until we can get a long-term provider if they need care. If they don't need care but they need their reablement to continue, then we will outreach with the reablement continuing. If they don't need anything from us at all, then we will still follow them up with a phone call and a visit some week or something later, just to check that they're okay. People leave with our numbers, and they know that they can ring at any time. If we're having any events on at Tea Glass Adolin, we always invite people that have stayed at Tea Glass Adolin before to come back, and the door is always open, really. We in the report we say a warm hello and a fond farewell, and we never really we never close the door on anybody.
And obviously, some of the older people that we met now go home. Quite impressive. So is that?
Yeah, so we're in a lucky position in Tea Glass Adolin that we have a tech person within Tea Glass Adolin who is very knowledgeable on assistive technology and can find solutions to things you wouldn't normally think about. So we offer within our Lifeline telecare service and Tea Glass Adolin the latest technology that we can. So we offer things like Alexa. I don't know what you saw, but there's the TVs, the blinds, So anything you can do with your voice on Alexa, you can do. So you can open windows, turn lights off, close curtains, boil the kettle, put the washing machine on, whatever, with smart plugs and different things. And that is not just offered in Tea Glass Adolin, that is offered throughout. What Tea Glass Adolin offers us is a space to be able to show and tell. So there is a flat setup in Tea Glass Adolin with all the equipment you could imagine, so that people can come in and try that equipment, see if it would make a difference to them, see what is available. And then in the assessment room, there's also opportunity for people to try different moving and handling equipment, different OT equipment, different bed equipment. So Tea Glass Adolin gives us the space and the opportunity with the expertise to be able to show people different ways of being able to cope with what they need to cope with.
Thank you. I think we were all impressed with that when we went down. So thank you very much. Councillor Seaborn, your question next, please.
Yeah, you've practically answered the question, but my point really is, are we able to assess? We've got a backlog of DFGs, I understand, and are we able to get through this backlog by assessment at Tea Glass Adolin? The Disabled Facilities Grant. I was going to add assistive technology on, but you've just answered the question. So I'm really pleased to hear that the assistive technology is catching up because it was mentioned many years ago in the council, and we had a house in Blanavon, I think, at one time. But really pleased with that. But I'm concerned about the disabled facilities grant. There's people out there waiting for maybe just a small change, a walk-in shower or something that, you know, could help. And whether or not assessments can be done a little bit quicker in one place rather than travelling around people's homes and taking the person to the assessment rather than going to the
Yeah, so part of the issue with the Disabled Facilities Grant waiting list at the moment is the availability of contractors. I think all of us who are going through home improvement, whether we're going through DFG or not, are having problems sourcing materials and finding contractors. So that's one of the issues. The other issue around assessment is, yeah, T-Glasadrolin is fitted out with level access facilities and different kind of facilities. And yes, we are looking at bringing people to T-Glasadrolin to experience those types of facilities, to see if they would be useful before perhaps asking an OT to go out and assess them in their own environment. So that's one way we can look at things. We will offer in the interim things like we're offering people to come in and use the facilities as showering opportunity, so making the bathroom on the ground floor a bit of a pamper room, if you like. Once or twice, 3 times a week, people can come in and have a shower and be supported to have that shower, and you know they can then have coffee and cake and things after, and make it a bit of a social afternoon or morning or whatever. So there is that facility as well, and it's always about the art of the possible. So if there is a gap that T-Glasadrolin can see and T-Glasadrolin can step in and help with, then it will do that. So it really depends on how the OTs can see that working in the future and how we can step in to support. But we're open to any service development that we can facilitate. I know Sarah wants to come in.
Only, and you'll probably be fed up hearing this, because as a responsible individual, as only if it falls within our regulatory requirements. So art of the possible, but within a framework.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Clarkson, your next question, please.
Hi, thanks for that. My question, some of it has actually been touched on already, but just to sort of enhance our understanding, maybe I can ask it in a single question and pull all the strands together a little bit more and help us understand going forward. It's talking in the report about going forward, focusing on pre-hospital / admission avoidance, which is obviously going to bring its own set of pressures, because that could be quite a large demand. So I was just wondering if you could have sort of more information on how this will be done, how referrals will be made, and any challenges you may anticipate as the service expands and progresses.
Okay, so I can give you an example of hospital avoidance that we've managed to achieve is where people live together and their carer becomes ill and the carer needs to go into hospital. There has been occasion where the cared for person has had to go into hospital as well because the carer is taken away from the situation. So in those situations, what T-Glasadrolin could offer is that the cared for person comes into T-Glasadrolin rather than going into hospital, and that the person that needs the hospital service then goes into hospital. Then once the carer is well enough to come out of hospital, we can join them back up again, if you like, to have some time under a supportive roof, if you like, before then going back out into their own homes. So that's one way where we can avoid hospital admission for somebody who doesn't have a medical need but has care needs. The other things we've looked at in terms of hospital avoidance is where people have been checked over by a paramedic or have received the sort of service that they need by CRT, but need just need to be kept an eye on from a medical perspective. So need the CRT doctor then to be there, need a carer to be able to be available, rather than the person being on their own whilst the CRT medical support is in place. Then those people can come into T Glassadorlan for a very short period of time while that intervention takes place. But it's always overseen by, and the governance is always by the CRT team.
But you're right, Councillor. I mean, we do only have 12 short-stay flats in T Glassadorlan, and there is much more demand out there. At the moment, our focus is very much on hospital discharge, avoiding delayed transfers of care, because we know, as has already been said, that provides the best outcomes for people. And a lot of the focus is on the back door of hospital. However, I think as a wider system, with our health board colleagues and partners, we need to really start focusing on what we can do in the community to prevent people who don't need to present at the hospital front door actually getting there. And so, you know, in partnership, we're beginning to have across the whole of Gwent those conversations, thoughts about that. That won't be something that T Glassadorlan can do on its own. It will be something that we do as a whole health and social care system. But I think there are some wins there if we can start looking at hospital avoidance rather than always the focus being on delayed transfers of care and getting people out of hospital. Because a lot of people do get admitted into hospital who don't actually need to be there.
Thanks.
Members will obviously be aware of the establishment of the Communities Directorate as well, and obviously there's a key function for the Communities Director to be playing here and linking up the services between adult services and communities to again, you know, ensure that where possible people are enabled to stay within their communities, not requiring residential care, not requiring hospital care as well.
Thank you. Lucy, did you want to come back in on anything? I've got the next. Have other authorities, not just locally but further afield, shown an interest into the model of T Glassadorlan as a new and innovative service that they may be considering replicating?
T Glassadorlan is popular for people to come and have a look at. It is an innovative model, and you've seen the building. You know, it's a fantastic building, but what's more fantastic is the work that goes on inside the building. So yeah, we have had a lot of interest in the building from government ministers, from health boards across Wales, really. From central delivery units in health as well, other local authorities, other housing associations, Welsh Ambulance Service. Everybody's interested in how this model works, really, because it is something that nobody's tried before. So,
yes, and we had a real opportunity as being, we were a finalist in the APSI Awards, so we had a real opportunity to showcase T Glassadorlan to the public sector across the whole of the UK. Unfortunately, we didn't win the award, but nonetheless, the opportunity was very welcome.
Thank you. You'll be pleased to know we don't have a final question, which comes from Councillor Seaborn.
Thanks. Well, somebody must be doing something better if we didn't win. What's happening? Right, my question is, finally, what will be the key challenges for T Glassadorlan in the year ahead? And with an addition, and when are we planning the next one?
I mean, this is very much our 6-month evaluation, isn't it? So we are absolutely early days. So I think one of the challenges is that proof of concept, making sure that the data and the evidence, that we understand it, and we understand what it's telling us. So that in and of itself is a huge challenge. There is still much to be done around the financial modelling because it has to be able to be sustainable in the current climate. So we will be working very hard on understanding that. I think as an innovative and new model, we would not want to rush to a second one because actually we're still very early days and we need to understand it much better than we do now. Early indications are very positive, but as you've heard, we are 6, 7, 8 months in. So I think the challenge is to carry on with all the other pressures in the system to really evaluate what it delivers, not just for Torfaen Council, and I think the report reflects this, it's the whole public services. You know, it is providing from early indications different opportunities for our NHS. So it's saving bed days. If we can pull people from hospital who don't need to be there, who otherwise will be a delayed transfer of care, the benefits are to the individual, most importantly, but also to the health service. So being able to try and understand that. What is really difficult to prove is cost avoidance and some of that invest to save. So we're trying to really drill down into that and understand it better. So that's where we're going forward. I think it's too soon in the life of this new model to be thinking about another one, and whether in fact Torfaen, whether we do need another one, or whether actually one is providing the needs that we have.
Sorry, something just occurred to me while you were talking about the challenges ahead, which I don't think you actually mentioned. So, what's the current relationship with Bronavon? Because obviously they're the landlord, aren't they? So, how is that working, and how could you see that developing going forward?
Working very well. They are absolutely a partner. We're continuing to work with them. With any new building, there is snagging, and we are working through that. And repairs are being done. They too have not been the landlords of this type of property as well, so we're learning together. But we have regular meetings with them. Our steering group for T Glassadorlan is still in place, so we meet every month. We have very open and transparent dialogue with them. And you know, so far it's been a very positive relationship.
Well, thank you. We've come to the end of our questioning. Before we sort of meet to make our recommendations, do you have anything you want to say in finalising anything? Jason? Say that? No? Well, thank you all for coming and giving up your valuable time. Once again, thank you for allowing us to come to T Glassadorlan. The welcome we had was fabulous. It gave us a big eye-opener to the facilities they're on offer, and we were very impressed, and hope you will allow us to call in and see you again. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you to leave, and then come back in a bit later on so we can have a cup of coffee.
Just to see, we can't hear you on screen. What's going on in the chamber?
I don't think there's any mics on, Steve.
I think they're waiting for the officers to clear.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad you observed that we have 2 reports to go through, and that it was concise questioning, and they gave us very full answers. Now I'm going to hand over to Rebecca to formulate some of our recommendations that we can put forward, and then we can ask Jason to come back in. Okay?
Thank you, Chair. So if I can just draw members' attention to the scrutiny activity for this particular report. It was for us as a committee for you to assess the progress of T-Glas-y-Dorlan against the intended outcomes in the first 6 months of operation, and then to provide your recommendations to the Executive Member for Adult Services and Housing on areas for development and improvement. So if I can hand over to members, Chair, in the first instance, for you to put forward any recommendations you may have.
Right. Councillor Steve Evans, if you want to come in first, please.
Yeah, the first part is, I know it's an early project. We've now got a baseline to look at the statistics and the overall financial aspects. So she said about not renewing another meeting or whatever. So how are we going to reflect on the future scrutiny of this assessment of the statistics? That's what I need to ask.
So if I can come back in on that, Councillor Evans, so obviously as you'll be aware, but new members won't be aware, each year, once you've finished your scrutiny items, you'll take an item, it's normally in around April, May, where you'll review all the recommendations that you've made from previous meetings, and officers will and the exec members will provide updates on those recommendations. So at that point, you will have an update on the particular recommendations that you make today. And also there is the opportunity for you as a committee to keep this item in your basket at next year's visioning, should you want to select it again in that year ahead going forward. Perhaps if you're not satisfied with progress on the recommendations that you've made. So you are entitled as a committee to keep this within your remit.
Rose, do you want to come in, please?
Yeah, I think Jason actually mentioned, I think there should be a recommendation about joining up with the Communities Directorate to link into T-Glas-y-Dorlan. And the other one was the financial stability. So perhaps the Resources Committee should keep an eye on the financial situation to ensure that it's running smoothly and funded.
That's what I was trying to recover in with all the stats and everything, Rose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's a new model, you need to have some sort of accountability later on, you know.
I think there's also a recommendation that, you know, because of it being a well-being hub as well, that we need to link up with Torfaen Leisure Trust in some of their well-being activities.
Thanks, Rose.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So I just a couple of extra notes, Chair, for members to consider if they wish. I picked up that when they mentioned about hoping to develop more drop-in sessions going forward, and I think members, if you're satisfied, you can link that with Councillor Seaborn's point, because I also had that noted about the links with TLT, because they are looking now going forward at the day offer as their next stage of development. Didn't know. There was the issue around, maybe you want to make a recommendation about strengthening awareness in hospitals. They did say they're doing a lot and things have progressed with that, but whether you feel they need to do more awareness about the services they're offering now or keep a refresh on that?
I think it would be worth on that, because I've spoken to a lot of people in the community and they are not aware of T-Glas-y-Dorlan and what's there. So I think greater information going out in the community is vital.
I think if I can just come in there is an issue of overwhelming as well with that. And it needs to be via referral, and it's about reaching the balance at the moment. It seems that they have got the links with the teams that can refer into them, but it would be good to hear more at a later date as to how progress is going with that communication links and what challenges are coming forward. So whether this is something we want to keep in our basket just to review further down the line when the model's progressed a little bit. But that's a concern that I've got, is that this is a service that is going to receive a great amount of pressure because there is a huge need for this.
I think you're right, Linda. It's about best practice, but because it's a new innovative scheme, there's no data to analyse against. So this is why
the complexity of what they're doing is people becoming more unwell and their needs increasing while they're actually staying at T Glasdor, how then can you get them back into an acute service with the pressures on beds and things, They really do have to walk forward at a pace at which they can maintain their service model and ensure that they're not being asked to cross over into performing roles that really, as a domiciliary care, they just can't facilitate. So it really is. I think the expertise of the officers and the staff we need to rely on, but it's about us getting updated or somebody getting updated at a future date, and for those financial issues which are just becoming more clear to be scrutinised further down the line.
Lucy, and then.
No, I just wanted to say to Chair, when you say that in your community, excuse me, you don't find that people know about it, I wonder if that's more a regional thing because you're in the north. Yeah. So whether very locally it's sort of come out and it hasn't quite reached you yet, yeah. But then I suppose going on what Lynn's saying, is it too, if you do advertise it, is it just going to be too much? But yeah, I wonder if that's more a regional thing at the moment.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Janet, because we have posts sent down to our Facebook page for Ty Glassadole and things that's happening in the community in the south. So perhaps it is a geographical thing that it's not quite reaching the north.
Totally agree. Now, please, Lucy.
I think one of the areas that it would be useful to explore, which we didn't have a chance to go into here, was the operational relationship between T Glasdor and the adult services teams. It was interesting and important, I think, to note what Sarah said, that they're actually one domiciliary care service. And I'm wondering if perhaps what might be useful, possibly at one of the next scrutiny meetings, would be to invite one of the operational team managers to come so that we can understand better what that relationship is, because it's obviously a lot of the social work teams that would look at arranging packages of care. It's not just hospitals and it's not just T Glasdor, and it's the operational social work teams, because bear in mind, it's only about, 6 years ago since a dedicated hospital team was disbanded, and that got, put into the general social work team. So I think it would be important for us to explore how that relationship is going ahead. And if we had an actual member or two, and even maybe someone from the enablement team, to understand their perspective of the relationship with T Glasdor, and that could be quite helpful.
Yeah, so just to come in there as well, Councillor Williams, so the last item on the agenda is the item where you discuss the item for the next meeting, and at that point, yeah, you can suggest any invitees you'd like to have along or anyone you'd like to go and visit beforehand, so yeah, we'll discuss that further.
There's only one Brexit came in of recruitment, the core team, missing roles, and they said that they are still trying to recruit, so how are we going about recruitment? Are we recruiting them from within the NHS or other services to attract people to come and work here? Because without the proper staff, we can't operate facility.
Sorry, Chair, just to come in there, so obviously that's more of a question than a recommendation. I can either pop that in the comments section, or do you want to turn that into
I think we can use that as a comment, as a general observation. Is that okay? Mark, do you have anything?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Not any selection.
Jane, I know right, Rose, I think this is the ready. Are you ready, Rose, to come in?
Can I just say the staffing? They did touch on staffing and recruitment, and I just wondered whether or not. And they mentioned where the teams were all based around. I just wondered whether that facility, having done the job, it's a very lonely job, and the teams don't get together very often. And I wondered whether or not Ty Glassadole could be used to bring the community teams that are out in the community doing the home care job together in that base, maybe for training or what have you?
Thank you, Councillor Seaborn. So, can I just summarise then, members? Are you satisfied with progress in that first 6 months that you've received with, as you conclude in summary?
Yeah, I think they're doing a good job.
I think we're
Yes,
satisfied.
very early days and progress seems to be on target. It's just interesting to see the winter period, post-COVID, and how
I'm
they
lucky
managed to
because
cope
it's
with
in
it.
our ward. We've seen the initial start-up, the issues, the progress it's making, which is slow, and which Linda's right saying, you know, you take slow movement rather than getting it wrong. But yeah, you can see the improvement all the time there. So yeah.
I think we're all under the agreement that it is working well, but there is still room for improvement, and we need to be updated and keep this on our agenda and reviewed again in 6 months' time. Is everyone happy with that?
So members, just the new members, just to let you know that I'll record those formally and I'll send those out to each of you to approve before they then get sent on to the exec member and the officers for responses. Okay, thank you.
In a way, like
Thank you, Rebecca.
Members, if you can just bear with us then while we call the officers back in for the next item. Thank you. Just to remind you as well that the meeting is still being webcast. Sorry members, we're just waiting on the officers to come back in. We won't be 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, everyone, shall we progress to our second report of the day? And welcome Phil to the meeting. Welcome, Phil. Obviously, we've welcomed Jason back as well. We're very conscious of time, and we know that we've all have read the report. So if it's okay with everybody, we'll go straight into our question then. Okay. So the first question on the market report, stability report, comes from myself. Is there anything in the report that you consider should be a priority and that this committee should give consideration to within the coming year?
If I take that to start with, Chair, and then if Phil wants to jump in, obviously. Making reference to the previous topic we discussed, and there obviously been some focus there within the domiciliary care market and the issues and experiences we're having with I guess, a void of domiciliary care providers and vacant hours. For me, that's a key priority going forward. I guess in many senses, every area within the background is a priority area. But I guess, in terms of prioritising the priorities, for me, domiciliary care would sit at the top because of the challenges that we're experiencing now, particularly with the onset of winter. But those challenges are quite prevalent throughout the year, as we've experienced, particularly since returning from COVID.
So we go on to question 2, which comes from Councillor Watkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. How will the PNA and market stability reports work together going forward?
Phil, do you want to take that one? Are you able to take that?
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you, councillors, and good morning. Both the PNA and the market stability reports are statutory reports that they're required by Welsh Government, and there is a certain complementary factor. The population needs assessment will set out obviously the needs. The market stability report is more specifically around obviously care providers, etc. Where they will come together and reinforce each other is through the development of the area plan. Both needs assessment and market stability reports are largely information highlighting where the issues are. What we now need to do is to get on with the work and mitigate against those challenges. An action plan will have to be produced, another statutory document, by the 1st of April next year, and in that document we will be setting out how we aim to take forward the challenges highlighted in both reports. In certain sense they will support each other in highlighting where the needs are, but for me really it's about how we get on with the work, and I think safe to say, to reassure members, there's already a huge amount of work, as you could probably heard already, in terms of social care providers and the support and the steps that we're trying to take place. But the area plan is where those documents will work together, and we would be able to bring that back to you and to a future scrutiny session if you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Councillor Clarkson, please.
Good morning, everyone. I think Phil has just answered some of the question that I've got in part. What I was going to ask is that there's been much mention of the cost of living crisis within the report, and the current uncertain times are likely to have a significant impact in the imminent future. It's upon us. So I was going to ask about what contingency could be built in, and the impacts this is likely to have on services going forward.
If I can take that to start, and then maybe Phil will come in. I think the crucial element there, Councillor, the crucial challenge is the uncertainty. And what we are clearly going to see, I think, across all domains is an increasing need. It's the uncertainty of the impact upon our services and the ability for our services to provide. I think in terms of contingency, I think the plans that we have in place throughout each one of those areas of domains and challenges, those plans remain. and they're the plans that we will continue to adopt. There's a lot of regional work taking place, for example, around workforce and workforce development. I mentioned obviously previously in our last meeting, in our last discussion, around the impact that inabilities to recruit. So there's a big piece of work taking place around workforce. Workforce is crucial to every element and underpins every element within this report and within that market stability. So I guess whilst there's no real contingency, it's a case of trying to put these plans into play with the acknowledgement of that level of uncertainty behind us as well. I don't know if there's anything you want to add there, Phil?
Just to add that both the PNA and the market stability reports are written at a point in time. The PNA was required by the 1st of April this year. The market stability report was required by the 1st of June this year. As you know, a lot can change in a week in politics, and you know, a lot has changed since both those reports were written, and the area plan, however, will give us an opportunity to go back and look at those needs assessments and plug gaps and just to reprioritise or just to sort of focus attention. But definitely the cost of living was not as pronounced a few months ago as it is today.
I think as with anything as well, Councillor, within any part of our planning, we always try to be as dynamic as we possibly can. Obviously, like I say, there's the challenges of the uncertainty of that and almost having to turn on a sixpence sometimes with some of our planning.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the difficult situation that you're in and the challenges that you've got to face for us.
Okay, thanks, Linda. Rose, do you want to come in with your question next, please?
Thank you, Chair. Solutions to some of these issues raised within the report lie outside this regional collaboration. So how do the findings from this report feed into Welsh Government or more national policy decision making?
Phil, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. As a RPB, we meet regularly as officers, but also as chairs. Anne Lloyd, the Health Board Chair, is also the Regional Partnership Board Chair, which is who has overall responsibility for meeting the statutory duties. Anne Lloyd is actually meeting with the Minister next week, along with the other 6 RPB chairs, and is part of a quarterly meeting. At that meeting, we will be impressing upon the Minister the huge priorities that Jason has already highlighted around domiciliary care homes, but in wider the cost of living pressures as well. So that is one channel. We regularly respond to consultations that come through from Welsh Governments, and we're not backwards in going forwards in challenging Welsh Government correspondence that often is directed to RPBs. So we do that in a number of different ways, through a written response, but in-person response. However, I think what is worth mentioning is that as a region, we work very well together. So Jason, along with counterpart directors of social services, will often produce regional correspondence along with the Health Board Chair. So I think there is a greater strength of voice when we respond as a region, and I thought that was just worth mentioning.
Okay, any supplementary questions to that? If not, we'll move on to Councillor Clarkson's next question, which is question 5.
I rephrase this slightly because we have covered some of this, but with the ever-increasing demands on services, there are specific areas within the report which haven't had as much attention. Mental health is one that sort of comes into sharp focus with me. I know there's a lot in the third sector regarding urgent care and immediate contact, but have we got any plans to sort of address those? There's also the situation with residential care facilities being quite limited in the area, and an ageing population, and in cases of autism increasing as more are diagnosed. So how are we sort of looking to sort of try and address some of those challenges on top of the challenges that we've already got to deal with?
Yeah, and if I'm happy if I can to pick this up. I'm proud to say that last week there was an autism conference for the whole of Gwent that was run here in Torfaen. And we had held it down in Pontypool. We had over 200 people attending, service providers, but more importantly, families, parents, and even children themselves. We actually worked with Torfaen Play. That was an opportunity to engage directly with the people who matter most here, and that is parents and children. There is a new code of practice that's been launched around the autism, and that is very much about increasing diagnosis, but also then at that point of diagnosis, signposting to relevant partners, information, etc. So there is some work taking place around autism, and also I believe it's next week there is a conference down in Rodney Parade around mental health and learning disability placements as well, and that again is looking to address some of the issues that have come out of these reports. It is engagement, it is co-production, it is about linking in with people on the ground. That said, it is another pressure on top of the number that we already have. But I will say that we have specific groups that are looking to focus attentions. For instance, in the region, we have a mental health and learning disability partnership where we bring together relevant partners, and Head of Adult Services, Sarah Paxson, attends from Torfaen. But there's also subgroups that have been set up around commissioning. And in terms of commissioning, my colleague Hayley Parker's on the call, and she's heading up that subgroup. But it is about looking at how we have to commission to focus on those with the most need. So it is just through good partnership working and relationship building and having those structures in place to bring the people around the table. Unfortunately, there is no magic wand, but what we are able to do is to refocus the resources that we have in these areas to where it will have the most impact.
Just very briefly as well, members will be aware through the consultation sessions that have taken place on the county plan, that's been some of the feedback that members have provided as well, is making sure, you know, that I guess services and around learning disability and autism and things like that are incorporated within the county plan as well.
Okay, can we next move on to a question from John?
Thank you. Yeah, in paragraph 2.9, the impact of commissioning practice on the market. When will the trial by Newport and the pilot by Monmouthshire be reviewed and excuse me, feedback shared across the region?
Happy to come in there. Just to confirm, is that the micro-pilot, micro-care pilot? Yeah. It is a pilot at the moment, as you're well aware. There has already been some informal feedback that we've been able to take through to partners, and that is certainly something that we could bring back to this group at almost whenever you're available to receive the report. We can definitely look to feed that interim feedback. It is an annual pilot. It is a year pilot, so it will be coming to an end at some point, but that doesn't mean that we can't refresh and sort of revisit priorities and bring back updates to you at a sooner date. It is slow going. It is a change in practice, but if I put my neck on the line, I would say in the next 5 to 10 years, I would say it will almost be the preferred way for some people. I think it will just grow and grow in ascendancy. The reason we're piloting in Monmouthshire is to test it out, to show it can work, because we want to extend this sort of pilot across the region, and hopefully Torfaen will be receptive to a microcare pilot in the future, if proven to be successful.
And I chair the Regional Carers Strategic Board members, and the pilot has been brought there and has been discussed there. Initial indications are, you know, it's positive. There are some challenges within it as well, in terms of things like self-employed status for people who embark upon the scheme. But in many senses, I think because of the issues we're facing with workforce, everything's on the table. We've got those initial positive indications. After a 12-month, as Phil has pointed out, we'll have that, I guess, more extensive evaluation. Everything's on the table, whether it has a small impact or a big impact. And I think those initial findings being positive, we'd be foolish not to look at how we can implement this regionally come post-April.
Kevin, so can we move on to your question, Ron?
Yeah, one of Torvine's long-standing providers recently purchased an office building where they got plans to make a 21-bed residential facility. Is there any progress on this, please?
Which facility is that, Councillor? So is it referenced within the report?
Oh, sorry, 2.10.
Sorry, bear with me. My apologies there, Councillor. I have to find out more information and report that back. I don't know if there's anything you've got there, Phil, but I'll have to establish the current state of that. Is that okay? Yeah.
Shall we move on to question 7 from, question 8 from Nick?
Thank you, Chair. Are localised action plans being developed based on the findings of this regional report?
Obviously, there's a number of things that will go into the division or the devising action plans. The short answer is yes. Everything we read and I understand within the regional report is mirrored, obviously, across Gwent and certainly within Torvine. So certainly this feeds into our action planning for the future and feeds into, I've already referenced the county plan, feeds into that as well in terms of priority setting within social care particularly.
And our final question is question number 9 from Councillor Seaborn.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to 2.1.2. Are there enough resources across the region to be put into the preventative services on top of providing for the current demand?
Phil, do you want to take that and I'll jump in?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it, in terms of how we turn the tap off, so to speak. I would say there's probably never too much money that we can put into prevention. However, you will be well aware of the acute and pressing needs at the moment, especially around hospitals and some of the numbers of people that are visiting the Grange, and unfortunately some of the ambulances that we have queuing outside the Grange. So it is a fine balance that we have to strike almost daily in terms of meeting people's needs with the most acute needs and obviously helping people to stay within the community. So I would say it is something that is almost a daily discussion, but there's more and more demands being placed on the acute needs. But for instance, there is a meeting at 2 o'clock today at Adult Strategic Partnership, and they will both be a focus on meeting the acute needs, but also the prevention. So it's almost like a swingometer, just keep going back and forth. But what I will say is there's a huge priority on prevention and early intervention long term, and that is definitely the direction and the focus of the RPB and partners, is to work more collaboratively, earlier intervention, prevention, and an integrated approach. What happens, obviously, is what we can't, discount is some of the acute needs from time to time. I know it's a bit of a rambled question, rambled answer, sorry, but yeah, I'm sure if there was more money, definitely we would put it into early intervention, but it is constantly balancing with acute needs and where we can sort of spend more time on early intervention.
Thank you, Phil. Therein lies the challenge, isn't it? So it's around how we shift resource and how we move need further down the system, so we're preventing that escalation. Again, going back to our previous discussion where we discussed T-Glas Adolan as an innovative model to try and challenge or try and shift that level of need further down and create, re-able people back into the community. And that's the challenge, is how we move from statutory provision and statutory services and high need acute services to preventative services. Something that, as a local authority and as a region, we recognise the benefits of early intervention and prevention. And certainly, I think within Torfaen going further forward, that's a key area again that you will have seen within the county plan, and how the county plan has been devised, of the involvement of communities and that greater focus upon community resilience and a focus upon early intervention and prevention.
Thank you, everyone. We've really moved progress this morning. So before we go to any recommendations, I'm going to ask both Phil and Jason if they'd like to summarise upon anything of the reports.
I think the only thing, the only summary for me is that recognition of, which you're well versed with this morning, recognition of those challenges. As I said at the start, in terms of priorities, domiciliary care is a key one that sticks out, but the challenges in each area is a priority area. We haven't touched upon children's services in our discussions, but there are key challenges within children's services going forward in terms of complexity of need and in terms of cost. Those children are hitting the high end of our services. So the challenges are multifaceted. When are they not, I guess, is what I would say. And I think the report points itself towards, those broad range of challenges that we're experiencing. I think Phil wants to come in as well.
Okay, Phil?
Just to go back to the previous point, if I can, raised by Councillor in the report 2.10, the 21-room residential care home that's proposed is with Virgo Care Homes Limited, who have seeking permission from Torfaen Council to change the use of Stadium House on Albury Road from an office building into a residential care home. So still at early discussions there, but we can send information following the meeting. But just to clarify, it's with Virgo Care Homes Limited.
Thank you, Phil. Is there anything else you want to come in?
No, thank you.
No. That concludes our meeting. Thank you, Jason, for coming back in. We now can have a couple of minutes to make our recommendations, and thank you for giving it your time. And we all appreciate the challenges you and your team are facing. And I think they're going to get a lot worse before they get better. Yes. Thanks very much.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, Phil. Much appreciated your attendance. We've had a very fulfilling morning, and I think we've raised a lot of issues. So I'm going to come back now with Rebecca to make our final recommendations for the second report.
Thank you, Chair. So again, if I can just draw members to the scrutiny activity for this report, it was for you as a committee to determine whether it is an accurate and comprehensive reflection of the stability of the Commission services across Torfaen and the Gwent Regional Partnership Board, and then provide any relevant comments and recommendations to the executive member. So members, do you have any recommendations you'd like to put forward on this report?
I think for me it's how do we monitor the situation with the uncertainty that everybody's having to deal with. How are we fed information back on the challenges as they progress? They're going to be different again tomorrow, I'm sure. It is that quickly changing the situation. So how are we going to be able to monitor the pressures and the challenges within the service areas that the report covers? He did mention there'll be another one in 6 months, but I'm sure a lot's going to happen in that 6 months.
So, sorry, Councillor Clark, so if it's okay now, so if we slightly twist that to make it a recommendation, and that you want assurances that adequate monitoring and that an eye is kept on that whole financial crisis situation when they're considering their analysis.
Lucy?
That's it.
I just wondered whether or not we could lobby the Welsh Government, obviously the national government is in a mess at the moment, but, you know, something desperately urgent needs to be done about the stability in the domiciliary care and community care at the moment.
Lucy?
I think an important recommendation could be to continue to have a really forensic look on the challenges of acute provision, particularly around the Grange Hospital, because that is being used for many. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but the Grange is being used for things it shouldn't be used for because of the acute needs, because it was originally set up as a you know. So just wording, just put that into some kind of recommendation, just a much clearer continuing look at balancing the acute services with the preventative service, with a particular focus on the Grange Hospital.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Liz, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion within the general community about where to go now for what level of service provision when it comes to urgent care. I know in Iron Bevan University Health Board are doing a great campaign on social media to try and explain to people, but sometimes it can be more simple. Ring 111 and let them direct you into the right area. So it's really difficult when to change the public's perception of how they access the services, and how's that going to be addressed by services across the board, even with GPs trying to get a GP appointment now. So how can we? It is difficult to word, Lucy, isn't it? How can we sort of see a way forward to improving public understanding of how to access services on the acute side?
I agree. I think it's an education process, isn't it?
I was just going to say, Chair, is it from Chair? Is it better education of our residents? Getting out information into the libraries, social media, because I think we're going to face a big issue going forward. I've got a question. Could we have an update on the autism aspect from that conference they had last week? Because we have got a lot of issues with autism in our area.
Thank you, Chair. I'll note that one down as an action point, because that's not actually a recommendation, but I will ask for an update on that for you.
Obviously, an update on that care home by Virgo, which Councillor...
Can I also see with that, Janet, and I agree with what you're saying there, but what about the disability part, particularly people who've got severe disabilities which are going into these care homes or even T-glass? Because there needs to be different provision. You know, if the financial impact or whatever is going to affect them, you know, we've got to be careful that we're looking at that as well as the normal packages, because, like I say, autism is a special package, the same as some of the disabilities.
Sorry,
that's coming in on this now, Steve.
So yeah, just to come in there quickly, I have noted that update down as an action point, but just to be mindful that obviously you're distracting a bit from the focus of this report is your views on the market stability report, not to be making recommendations on specific areas. Obviously, you've got the domiciliary care report coming next time, so that's your opportunity then to focus on the main issues that arise out of that. So I think what they're asking, obviously this will be coming to council now next week for your final approval, and obviously it's gone to the other local authorities. So just a general consensus as a committee, you are satisfied with the comprehensiveness of the report?
Yes.
Thank you, members.
Okay.
You're so good at bringing us back on board, Rebecca.
It's such a huge situation that everybody's facing, so it really does need the officers' sort of expertise to focus sharply on what is a very entangled situation.
I totally agree, because I think we've all got issues that we're so passionate about, and getting them in the right perspective. is a big difficulty. That's why we are glad of Becca's guidance on this. So we finished our recommendations. We're now going to go and focus for the item for the next meeting. Okay?
Thank you, members. So normally at this stage in the meeting, this would be your opportunity to discuss the item that you wanted to look at your next meeting. And you'd consider the basket of items that you selected in your visioning session in June. You'd consider any audit referrals, and you'd consider what's coming up in the exec forward plans. However, as you'll be aware, I emailed you all a couple of weeks ago because this meeting was originally postponed, and we had to take the 2 items in one session. So I did ask you all your permission whether you were happy to stick with your visioning item that you selected, which was the domiciliary care item. And most members did get back and say that you would be satisfied to, that's an important one for you and you wanted to prioritise that. But if I can just quickly, because there's another meeting that's been pulled forward. At your visioning session, you also wanted to prioritise community resilience. And Dave Leach, the Chief Officer at the time, recommended that he would like you, if you were to select it as a priority item, to consider it before Christmas. So we popped in a meeting in December. Members, are you satisfied to take community resilience? Obviously, it's been referred to again today in these items, relationships with communities. Are you therefore happy to take that item in December meeting?
Oh, yes, definitely. I have to see the report. Yes.
Yep.
Linda.
Didn't catch that, Janet.
I was saying, Linda, do you want to come in, or Lucy? Because I see you both.
So I wasn't quite clear. So are we having the domiciliary care one, then the communities one?
Yes, the domiciliary care report will come in the November meeting, and then another meeting's been scheduled now for December. Are you happy to take the community resilience? Yeah. So normally today has been an exception. Unfortunately, you've had to consider 2 reports, so it has been a bit of a gallop through. Our apologies, but normally you would concentrate on 1 report per meeting. Okay.
So we all happy with that? Also,
Move,
before.
yeah.
You okay, Linda?
Yeah, fine by me.
Questions you asked this morning has been really good, and we have managed to get through on time, thank goodness, because I was very conscious of it. So obviously most of you got out meetings this afternoon, so thank you for your attendance, and I'm sure we can have an even more stronger, resilient meeting for domiciliary care, because it's something we're all passionate about. So we better be prepared to be concise on that issue as well. Okay, thank you. See you soon.